Hi folks, it's been almost 2 weeks since the last update I gave you about the roof repair, and if those of you who watched the first one for the upper roof repair saw that the entire upper roof had been ripped off, ready to put new roofing on. Well, once again I was lied to by the weather service. What was supposed to be the first of 4 nice days turned out to be the only nice day, so I had to hurry and scramble and put that upper tarp on there because the next day after that we had rain. And since then we've had rain almost every other day or so since then, including the remnants of Hurricane Michael. So it's been almost 2 weeks now. Taking another chance because again we're supposed to have 4 nice days, but I have no choice. It's getting towards winter. If I don't get these roofs on now, I won't. So the plan for today, I take the tarp off the upper roof, get that prepped and get that ready to be started, and just pray that we have the 4 nice days, because I think in these 4 nice days I can get both roofs on, but we'll see what happens. So hang on for the ride and we'll keep you updated as we get working on this. Thanks for watching. Alright, we are making progress here on the roof. As you can see, we got the tarp all off, and what I've also done is I've gone to wherever I'm going to be attaching screws from the steel into the existing wood furring here. I've put extra support here with 2.5-inch galvanized drywall screws, decking screws, so that they're on better. Unlike the way this roof was put on, the modern roofs, you screw the screws in from the top of the steel. This had clips from the bottom, so the roof had this furring, and I want to apologize. In the first video I kept referring to it as lath. Lath obviously is wood strips too, but that's inside in a plaster wall, so I just, one of those things I wasn't thinking. But this furring that's on here, I will reuse, but I don't need it solid like it was. You can see I had cut basically 3 channels out of it so that I could work here on the roof, and I have to maintain those as I put the roof on, since I'm working from inside to out rather than from the top down. I don't have the scaffolding equipment or safety equipment to work from on top of the roof as I go, so I have to do this a little differently, and you'll see that as we progress. But what the new steel is, basically the screw pattern is every 2 feet you run screws across the piece of steel every 9 inches apart. So you'll see that when we get into it, but that means I don't have to put a screw in every single one of these pieces of furring. The pieces that I've left on here are just support for it so that it sits flatter on the roof. If this was a more modern type of roof, let's say it was shingle roof and we were just going to put steel over top of it without taking it off, all they would do is either put some of this 1x furring or even 2x4s in a pattern of every 2 feet rows where they're going to screw it in. So I didn't have to run screws into every piece of this furring. As long as they're in, the old nails are holding them tight, they're not going to go anywhere because the weight of the steel is going to be on top of it and it will give extra support. But now what I do have to do is I have to put some extra 1x's in here, because I want to be able to put rows of screws going up along every 2 feet all the way up to the peak. So, and I took more than that out. I needed to so that I could work up here. But here's the other issue. This furring comes back from the day when people meant what they said, and when they said it's a 1-inch thick piece of wood, it was a 1-inch thick piece of wood. Today you can't find that. Anything that is labeled as 1x lumber is actually 3/4 in thickness. So my issue is putting the new stuff in. How do I make sure that it's level so that it's not recessed below these old ones? So I could have ripped them all off and put all new 1x, which is really 3/4 lumber on, but that was too much work. So all I did is I found some of this old 1/4-inch plywood I had laying around, and I just cut some blocks, and I just used my nailing gun there and just tacked them in place. I'm going to run screws through them anyhow when I put the 1x4s new furring on top of them. So that was just to hold them in place. So basically what I've done is I've done 3 rows of those. There'll be one down below, and then there's one here, and then there's one near the top. But I'm still going to go down on the bottom, then come up 2 feet, then come up 2 more feet, and 2 more feet, and 2 more feet, etc. as I work my way up to the top. So I had to put, had to make 3 new rows that I'll be putting on here. So that'll be the next step. But I just wanted to show you this spacing idea. You wanted to make sure you had a fairly flat surface for the steel to lay on. You don't want it to bulge, or you don't want to have your screws draw it down further than other parts of the steel, because that would be a place where you could have some damage, or your screw would mash too flat, what have you. You want to keep it as smooth and flat as you can, and still maintain your integrity. Now the other thing too, and the other reason why I wanted to put some new furring in here too, new furring, is because it doesn't matter how many screws I put in the steel when I'm putting it down. If the wood supports underneath aren't in good and tight, if you get wind, it could rip the whole thing right off. It'd just take the whole piece of steel and the furring with it. So that's why I made sure I went through any place where I was going to put screws from the roof down onto either the old furring or the new, that I put new screws in there so that it's anchored good and tight to the rafters here. So nothing can move. Doesn't matter what the wind is, it shouldn't be able to pick anything up. So that's the one thing you've got to make sure, is that you're under support, your furring or your 2x4s, whatever you're doing when you're putting the steel down. That's got to be anchored good and tight to the structural members of the house, because that would be a weak spot. That would be a spot where in a bad storm that the system would fail and the roof would rip right off as a whole piece, or in large chunks. Whereas with the amount of screws I'll be putting in each piece of steel into the furring, it should hold it in place, and the furring is tight to the members, so nothing should move. And that's the goal, obviously, for many, many decades. So we'll see how this goes, but that's the next step in our phase of redoing this roof, and I'll come back to you when we're at the next part. After that, then we've got to talk about putting in some of the accessory pieces. Again, normally those you'd put on last after the furring, or after the roof was down, but I can't do it that way because of how I'm working here. It's a bit kind of backwards, but it's what's doable when you don't have the extra safety equipment, or the scaffolding, or a lift. So I'll show you how it goes. Thanks for watching. Yes, that is a deer back in the field, folks. I'll zoom back and you can see where I am here. I'm still up on the roof working, but it's about 5:15, and the first of the deer has come out to eat the grass. I don't know if we'll have any more, but if there are, I'll let you know. It's a nice sized doe, and she's working her way across. Stay tuned. Okay, it is now almost 6:30, so I'm going to call it a night for the night. But as you can see, we've got the first panel on, which doesn't sound like much, but considering all the prep work today and also the accessory pieces that had to go on first, the what do they call it, a eave, or a rake and corner, something like that, on the end piece, basically on the end of the eave. That had to go on. I had to put that on first. Normally you'd put that on after your tin was on, but again, I'm not climbing on top of the tin. So, and then also I got the first piece of the cap. That's about a 10-foot long piece there. I'll have another 1.5 to put on till I'm done. But as you can see, the piece is on. The 1x lumber is in place, so I've got good solid place to run screws in every 2 feet all the way up. And just a couple other things that I learned. If you look there where the piece goes underneath the cap, it's screwed into not the valleys but the ridges, and you use the 2-inch screws there. So of course you'd pinch it down too much, it wouldn't look right, but you can see I managed to get those in place. And then also where the end piece here, the eave piece, attaches to the panel I also used 2-inch screws there to hold it. You're going through double thickness of steel, and also gives it extra protection. And then as I did it, every 2 feet up through, 9 inches apart with the screws, so that's basically in between each one in each of the valleys of the piece. And then what I could reach from up here, I got 3 of my 4 first ice guards in place. The pattern for fastening them that they suggest is 2 rows down near the bottom, 18 inches apart with the bottom row. That would be that first one, and then go over 9 inches to the next channel, and then go up 2 feet and put another one. So you basically have them every 9 inches. The fourth one isn't in place, as you can see there. I couldn't reach it from up here, but that's all right, because when I get down to the lower roof, I can just throw like an 8-foot ladder up and catch the edge here. There were a couple screws in the very end I couldn't reach either, stretching across. But again, as long as they're down near the end here, I'm not worried about it, because I can get them from down below. I'll just, before I do the lower roof, put a ladder on and down, tucked down in between the slats in the lower roof, and it'll reach up high enough that I can get up here at this to finish it off completely. So tomorrow the plan is to just continue working my way across the roof like you see here, until we're done. Basically what I did to get the tin up here, the steel pieces up here, it's like 3 feet by 12 feet 8 inches, I think is what it was, and that's typical when you're putting a metal roof on. They want an exact measurement, because that way they will cut the steel for you to the exact length you need. You don't need to piece it and or have to cut it on the roof. So that's the plan, so that it's like pre-fitting. A number of years ago, when my son had, you can't really see it real well from here, but he did half of the barn roof over there, because it was leaking on the south face. The shingles always wear faster in the south face because the sun hits it directly. That was like 28 feet or something like that. They just couldn't get panels long enough, so they had to put two per course going up through, of course, but one was fairly long and one was shorter, so that's what they did with that. But here that wasn't necessary. Here I can just use one piece. And the way I got them up on the roof was from the other side here. It's only 2 stories down to the ground, so I have a 40-foot extension ladder that I put up, and it's up to the bottom of the other side of this roof. So what I did was I slid the sheets of steel up the ladder as I climbed it, and then I had a helper up here on the ladder here, grabbed it when he could reach it, and then held it till I could come up, and then we could swing it into place. So that seemed the easiest way. You're not bearing the whole weight of the steel. It's kind of flat against the roof. That way, if there's any wind, it's not going to blow it around. Again, the proper way to do this, you'd have some kind of a lift to just pick the steel right up to the roof, and the roofers would just grab it at eye level and throw it right into place. But this is country living on a shoestring, so I can't afford that kind of equipment, even to rent it for a week. So you make do, and this has worked out, so we'll just keep working at it tomorrow until we get it done. And hopefully the weather will hold. We'll get the upper roof done tomorrow is the plan. And then the next 2 days, if we have the extra 2 days that they were calling for, get the lower roof done. So I'm hoping to get this project wrapped up this week if the weather cooperates, and that's the big if, of course, because it's getting too late in the season to be doing this kind of roofing. And besides that, I still have a lot of firewood I got to haul in, and some other projects. I still have to winterize the gardens, and a couple other outside things before the weather gets too bad. So I will give you an update on how the roof looks tomorrow, how it's coming along. If I run into any problems, I'll mention those, just so that, you know, in case you do, if you ever have to do any roofing, that you can understand what I dealt with and how I solved it. I'm not saying it was necessarily the right way to do it, but try to be practical and do what works. So thank you for watching, and we'll catch you tomorrow with this project continue. Well, folks, it's now 2 days later since the last portion of this video and you can see how far we've gotten. Yes, we've had our nice sunny days with no rain. So why haven't I been able to get any more done on the roof really, other than some odds and ends? Well, because for the last 2 days it's been so windy I can't get steel up on that roof. I mean, I have to carry it up on a ladder, slide it up over the roof, and yesterday morning I thought, okay, let's get it started. Well, the first piece, I just started up the ladder, a gust of wind caught a hold of it, ripped it right out of my hands, and if I'd have been up on the ladder, probably knocked me off too. So there's just no way to win, it seems, with this weather. It's supposed to be less windy tomorrow, so maybe I can get back at it tomorrow, but just these wind gusts, 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour, if I'm going up a ladder 15, 20 feet, there's no way I want to get blown off the ladder with that. And those sheets, each and every one of them is 12.5 feet long by 3 feet wide, probably about 50 pounds. So they act just like a sail if the wind gets a hold of it. So there's no other way for me to do it, since I don't have the ability to have a lift to get it up there. So that's where we stand. Maybe towards evening, if the wind dies down, I can get more steel up on the roof. I'll just set it over on the flatter shingled part there of the other addition on the house. See if I can do something that way with it. And it is supposed to be less windy tomorrow, so maybe I can get back at it, but there's no way in the world that I'm getting the lower roof also done tomorrow. So this project just keeps getting pushed out and pushed out because of the weather. So we'll see what happens, but not much else I can do right now, but I want to give you this update. Okay, so stay tuned. Well, as you can see, we did get a little bit further along yesterday. The wind did die down enough by early evening so that I got 2 more pieces of steel up on the roof and put in place. And it's a little breezy today, but I think we might be all right to get the steel up there. So we'll see how far we can get today. Maybe we can get the whole roof done, we'll see. But it's still progressing, and hopefully things will continue today. So we'll give you an update as things progress later today. The roof is progressing, there's no doubt about that. Still going okay, nothing major. One thing I think I discovered though, I do not think I need the 9th piece. I thought I was going to have to cut one and put maybe a foot or foot and a half in the end, but as they're coming across here, I think the 8th panel will tuck underneath. Will tuck underneath the sidewall cap there. I think so. I'm hoping. We'll see what happens. If I don't have to cut a 9th piece, that'll be wonderful. So we'll come across and see where we end up. If I can just get a coverage underneath that it overlaps, that it won't, that there won't be any chance for water to get under it, then it doesn't have to go all the way over against the roof, as long as it's underneath that end cap piece. So we'll see what happens. As you can see, I still have work to do from the lower roof to get there to get the rest of those snow guards on there. I'm reaching what I can from there without leaning out over the roof too much. So, and there's like 1 screw per panel in the bottom left corner of each panel I can't reach from up there, so that'll also have to be done from a ladder on the lower roof. But again, that's doable as well. So, and the roof isn't going anywhere right now, so hopefully we'll get this done today before this rain comes in tomorrow. Yes, we're back to rain again. And I won't have to tarp it, and then the finishing touches can be put on possibly even next week when I get to the lower roof, unless they change the forecast again about next week. It's supposed to be fairly nice next week, so we'll see what happens, but I'll keep you informed. Thanks for watching.